Hi, my name is Kalisa, and I'm with Advocate for Truth Foundation. We strive to empower local communities through advocacy. What's the need in your local community? Is it childcare, quality tutoring, mentorship, faith-based organizations connecting with the community to help to address trauma or healing in the community? Well, we are here to do that. I just want to give a testimony of some of the work that I've personally done over the years. So once again, my name is Kalisa. I'm the original advocate for truth. I've lived by truth. I've walked through truth for most of my life, not knowing that I was a truth teller. And so when I was younger in my local community, there was a need for childcare. And so I kind of became like the local babysitter within my family, within my community, within my church community. And that's how I kind of grew to become an entrepreneur and have a babysitting, hustle as a very young girl. I wasn't even 10 years old before I made my first, couple dollars babysitting. And so that natural gift that I had carried over into my teenage years. My very first job, earning income on a W-2 at $6 an hour, okay, was in a childcare, working as an assistant in a childcare. I was still in high school. And so I'm saying this to say that the solution-oriented pathway or the strategic planning that I can provide to those in need when it comes to childcare is one from lived experience, because I, in my 40s, have worked as a childcare provider, starting off as a young girl doing babysitting, childcare assistant in a preschool teacher, childcare owner, nanny, governess nanny. That means you take care of all the needs of the child, appointments, driving them to wherever you are the child's parent while the parent is absent. Mother, full-time, homeschool, stay at home. So when it comes to needs in the community surrounding child care or child welfare, I do believe that the expertise that I bring through lived experience is a level that within whatever community has a concern about how to knit this knitted quilt of childcare need together, that I can provide a type of solution that fits the culture of that community. Advocate for Truth Foundation is truly centered on empowering communities. So we are not seeking to come in and take over and do the work in our vision. We're coming with the knowledge base that we have, and we're saying, hey, neighbor on Franklin Street, hey, neighbor on Doherty Street, did you know that 3 blocks down from you, there's a family who is looking for someone to pick up their child after school and bring them home, or pick up their child and bring them to the local library, and that their need is literally 2 to 3 hours a day? Your daughter is a recent graduate from high school. She doesn't have the qualifications to possibly go out and to solicit herself for full-time work, but there's a need in the community. And if you don't feel comfortable with her going into the home of someone else, which is quite understood, would you feel comfortable if your daughter earned a few dollars, 2 to 3 hours a day for 5 days a week to be able to meet this child at school and walk with them to the local library until their parents are able to pick them up? It is just as simple as that. And, within local communities, oftentimes there's a lack of communication because we've gotten so divided from the village systems that we once had, to where one neighbor is intimidated to speak to the other because it's understood that everyone is actually supposed to be minding their own business. But that's not how communities should function. We live in a very individualistic society, and by being an individualistic society where we are very monotone and tunnel vision on whatever our priority is, we don't get to reap the benefit of living in a village where you scratch my back and I scratch yours, but our needs are getting met. It's one thing when you have the wants You may want to acquire wealth in a certain area. You may want to build an addition to your home or your property and have that as a place of respite and peace for yourself, or an extra rental property. But what you actually need is electricity. What you actually need is to have adequate parking space in your community. What you actually need is to have your community members respect sun up to sundown as a policy that HOA shouldn't have to enforce. We should have this collective framework when it comes to respecting our neighbors and respecting our neighborhood, to where when the sun goes down, we want to observe those hours of quiet time between whatever our community agrees on. When I was growing up, it was around 8 p.m. Prime time, things are starting to like calm down. Children are going to bed. Parents possibly watching primetime television, but it's a quieter time of the evening, especially in the winter. Summertime, give or take, let's give it maybe like 9 o'clock. And so, but these are the things that within local community, if we strive to do these things within local community, we'll see success in partnerships. We may see less of a need of those who are out of work because we're communicating with one another and sharing our needs and sharing our desires. And as they say, word of mouth. Have you ever heard that game telephone, where you pass on a message and by the time it reaches somebody else, it's a whole different thing? Well, now we have Nextdoor. Now we have Facebook. Now we have other social media platforms where you are able to post within your local community and your message doesn't have to get misconstrued. Whatever it is that your desire is, let's post that. Let's connect with those members and let's get some resolve and some solution around what it is that we need. Oftentimes in the summer, when I was growing up, I lived for summer block parties where the community got together and threw a big block party. We have gotten to a place in our individualistic society where these things are not fostered, and quite frankly, in many areas, they are no longer safe. Advocate for Truth Foundation has a solution for that. We must once again come together with local law enforcement and our neighbors, okay? So it's not law enforcement over our neighbors. It's coming into conjunction with law enforcement and our neighbors to have a collective understanding of who's in our neighborhood. And when we walk away from our homes or when we gather in the public sector, who belongs there and who doesn't. It doesn't mean that visitors are not allowed. It means that we're familiar with who we live amongst. And we're familiar with the understanding that our neighbors have the right to have visitors. They have the right to have people to come and to visit them on a property that they pay for or are renting. However, we want to avoid the solicitation. When visitors come into the community and they solicit, or when visitors come into the community and they begin to bring a black sword to the community by hanging out in places of property that either doesn't belong to them or in a manner that brings the value of the community down. And that is a community discussion. That's a discussion that would happen when communities come together and they actually speak to one another about what their expectations are, and respecting that in some cultures things are different. When I was living in a certain part of the country, I lived around many persons who were from the Indian background. And so, Southeast Asian, and they cooked food in their garage. It is a part of their culture. They do not believe in cooking the large meals inside the home. They cook it outside the home, clean the meat outside the home, all of those different things. It has something to do with a kosher aspect of preparing food. And so for many neighbors, that was disturbing, because in American culture, we're taught to cook our food in our backyards or in our kitchen, but not necessarily in our garage. And so if you can imagine preparing your meal in your garage and having your garage open and someone coming down the street and seeing that there's someone cooking, has a kitchen and is full-blown cooking in the garage while they're driving past. And after a while, you may begin to feel out of place in your community. Like, wait a minute, this is very different. Like, what's going on here? That's a conversation to be had. So Advocate for Truth Foundation likes to pick through and find the source of what some of the local concerns are, and then come back to the solution, which we will say collectively as a whole. Any advocate that is aligned with Advocate for Truth Foundation has the same premise of solution, which is communication. It is impossible to find a resolve to any and most of our life's concerns if we are not willing to communicate. And then as adults and as citizens, we have to be willing to agree to disagree. If we're not able to agree to disagree, then that means that we have a certain level of resolve about ourselves where we are entitled in thinking that our way goes. There's a saying that says, your way or the highway, my way or the highway. That's not the American way. It cannot be the American way as it is right now. There's too much going on in America at this moment. Some may argue and say that is the American way. Some may say that the pioneers of the country came in, stole land, and it was their way or the highway. It was their way or the slaughter way. It was their way or the displaced way. And that's the way that it has been. I am not going to argue that point. Very factual there. Very factual. What my point is we are at a juncture in American culture that if we do not embrace a village mindset and start to work toward solutions within our local communities, we are beyond going to be in big trouble. We're done. Okay? It's not even big trouble. We're done. We are at a place where we can no longer depend to reach our hand up to local government of any form. And this is not speaking against the respect or alignment of local government. This is speaking toward a solution-centered resolve within local community, because local community has not played its part thus far. We have given too much authority and control to our local government, to our local frameworks. And that's not the framework for community should be made based on the needs of community. And within the need of community, the community should come together as a collective whole and cry out to its representatives based on the needs that they have collectively come together and agreed upon. But what has happened is outsiders come in, surveyors come in, and I know this because I've sat on these boards. Surveyors come in and they build studies, they build surveys, they go into community, they cultivate data, and based on the data that the outsiders who are paid to come in, consultants, and collect on your local community and on my local community, based on that information, solutions are formed. But did they really get down to communicating with local community members? Was there a town hall meeting? Was there a block party where community members were able to collectively connect with the consulting firm agents? Or was a survey built and persons were paid a stipend to go out and canvass community, collect data, and from that, solutions were formed? You see me blinking? So at Advocate for Truth Foundation, we are all about the organic elements of change. It starts with your mind, the reformation of your mind, the when, where, whys, and hows, strategizing based on what you see and what I see. Let's rap. The originations of rap is actually communicating. Let's rap. Let's have a conversation about what we see, remembering that our local community framework is not going to look the same 6 blocks down. So let's focus then on a certain element of local community. Remember, I like to use the quilt. If you haven't heard me speak of this before, I like to use the quilt as a visual metaphor of what community looks like. You can have a whole bunch of different patches on a quilt, and none of them necessarily have to match, But the end result is that the quilt will become something that could cover up your body and warm up your body or be a decoration to your bed as a whole, as a one unit. Even though it could be made of 100 different squares or rectangles or circles, triangles, whatever, but at the end, it's supposed to be one unit, which is in turn a quilt. That's what a community is. You have cultural differences, language differences, definitely socioeconomic differences in America, at least, where we have moved into a class system. But a lot of our urban American communities are mixed communities with houses and apartments, maybe some tiny homes here and there, RV park somewhere, a mobile home park somewhere, you know? And so that's our community. That's the quilt. And the goal is to get work on the knitting. Let's get the foundations going, because the threads have loosened over the years. And now we're not working on a quilt anymore. We're not working with a quilt. We're working with like threads. Threads that are barely hanging on. I am so grateful that one of the initiatives with Advocate for Truth Foundation is the Trauma to Survivors move. And what that is an effort to acknowledge those who have suffered from non-physical domestic violence, whose voice has not been heard, who has been advocating for healing. Well, guess what? Advocate for Truth Foundation, we see you. We see you, and we see the need. We understand that in the world of domestic violence, there is not a substantiated place for the woman or the man or the child who has suffered from non-physical domestic violence. You're told that maybe you need to go to counseling. Have you tried counseling? And the counseling efforts become so redundant. But what about finances? What about the ability to be able to function in life despite the thoughts and the ruminations, the things that you do not see? It seems as if there are more concessions for those, more supports when it comes to finances for those who have physical scars. And we do not undermine someone who has experienced physical domestic violence. We do not undermine them, and we do not accept anyone who wants to heal. But what we are saying in this initiative for the Trauma to Survivorship is that we are acknowledging that those who have experienced non-physical domestic violence also need a platform to have a voice. They need to be heard. Narcissism is a buzzword in our society. It's a form. It can be a form of non-physical domestic violence. Mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, childhood trauma based on the memories of experience that have never been reconciled or dealt with. All of these are forms of non-physical domestic violence. And if an adult in community is suffering from these things, but yet they're getting up and they're going to work, taking care of their children, and trying to just provide, they themselves are actually in an express mode of mental and physiological deterioration. There's no way we can say that our communities are healthy if the members of our communities are struggling in silence. And some don't even know that they are, because of the invalidation of thinking that because they don't have a physical scar, they don't have anything to be concerned about, that they have not been victims. Not true. Not so. I thank you for taking the time. If you head over to advocatefortruth.org, the first thing that you'll see is the homeschool initiative. And that is to support homeschool families in local communities as a right now solution to what's happening with the Department of Education. Homeschool families are capable to fill in the gaps with tutoring and mentoring, after school programming, whatever the need is, if possible, if they knew how they could be utilized. There's been such a divide between homeschool families and families whose children go to school, and it has definitely torn community apart. It's time to come back together, y'all. If we don't focus towards a village lifestyle right now, as a right now solution, we're done. Pew! It's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Community. Historically in communities, when governments have begun to unravel and the systems that we have known to become secure around have begun to unravel, the change has come from local communities. I'm here to uplift you. I'm here to support you. And I'm here to let you know that advocatefortruth.org is a place where you can go. Fill out a contact form. If we're not in your state, it doesn't mean that we can't have a phone call. There are advocates who are trained. We are not counselors. We're not doctors. We're not lawyers. We are advocates. And it is within our rights to be able to provide information to other American citizens. Hello, my name is Kalisa, advocatefortruth.org. And while you're there, please consider supporting positive change today. Hit one of those donate now buttons. It'll take you to a forum where you can read more about what I've told you and find out all of the ways that we're seeking to support local community. I thank you so much for your time. Remember, the spring is near and the summer is here, okay? If the spring is near, the summer is here. This is just a matter of a few months. We want to make an extreme impact in community in this year of 2025. We want to see block parties happen in local communities. We want to see children who are out of school for the summer not just hang out on the street or hang out at the park or hang out at the playground. We want to see them actively engaging and building within local community in innovative ways. Head to advocatefortruth.org and see some of the ways that we are presenting. If you have any advice, if you would like to read into some of the things that we are saying or we are suggesting, fill out a contact us form. Contact us. Go to the drop-down window and complete the form. Someone will get back to you. Thank you so much. Remember, consider supporting positive change. Pass this on. If you're listening and you're from corporate, pass this on to your upline. We need your support. Advocatefortruth.org. Thank you so much and have a great day.